Imagine waking up one morning and realizing you don't own a single inch of the earth beneath your feet. Not your home, not your backyard, not even the sidewalk you walk on. Every patch of land is accounted for, bought, sold, flipped, and hoarded. The ground you stand on? It's just borrowed space, leased at a price that rises faster than your paycheck. This isn't some dystopian future, it's happening right now. Land is the ultimate currency, always has been. It existed before gold, before money, before borders. Ancient kings waged wars for it. Empires rose and fell over it. Today, the battlefield has changed, but the war for land is far from over. Except now, you don't see the bloodshed. You don't hear the cannons. The conquest is silent, hidden behind contracts, corporations, and coded legalese. Who owns the land? Not you, not the people. A handful of families, investment firms, and shadowy figures who never step foot on the soil they control. They buy it cheap, wait, and sell it back at prices no normal person can afford. They aren't interested in homes, farms, or communities. They see land the way a banker sees numbers on a screen. Just another asset to exploit. Meanwhile, young families struggle to buy their first home. Farmers lose their fields to sprawling shopping centers. Entire generations are locked out of ownership, forced to rent forever while prices keep climbing. And here's the twist. This isn't just an accident of economics. It's by design. The rich get richer because they don't just own money. They own space. They own the future. They own you. But why is this happening? How did we lose control over the very ground we walk on? And most importantly, can we get it back? The answers lie buried in history, hidden in ancient wisdom, and whispered in backroom deals. But if you're willing to see the truth, you'll understand why land isn't just valuable. It's power. And right now, that power is slipping away. To understand why land is slipping through your fingers, you have to go back, way back, before modern banks, before real estate markets, before property deeds. In ancient times, land wasn't something you bought. It was something you belonged to. Tribes lived where their ancestors had lived. Their connection to the land wasn't transactional, it was spiritual. The land provided food, water, shelter. It was life itself. Owning it was unthinkable, like trying to claim the air or the ocean. But then came the first landlords, the warlords, kings, and emperors who realized something sinister. If you control the land, you control the people. Look at ancient civilizations. The pharaohs of Egypt? They didn't just rule people, they owned the land along the Nile. The peasants? They worked it, but they didn't own a single grain of sand beneath their feet. In medieval Europe, the feudal system perfected this model. Kings granted land to noble lords who let peasants farm it in exchange for endless labor. Own nothing, work forever. Sound familiar? Feudalism never really ended. It just changed its disguise. Then came the age of conquest. European empires sailed across the world, planting flags on land that had been home to indigenous people for thousands of years. Their claim? A piece of paper and a gun. The idea of private property became law, written in blood. Fast forward to today, and the game remains the same. The lords are no longer knights in castles, but billionaires in boardrooms. The peasants? Everyday people, locked out of land ownership, forced to rent, and at the mercy of those who control the supply. The esoteric side of land ownership. But here's the part they don't want you to know. Land isn't just real estate. It's not just numbers and property deeds. It has an energy, a presence. In ancient spiritual traditions, land wasn't just dirt and rock. It was sacred. The Chinese concept of feng shui speaks of energy flowing through the earth, affecting fortune and fate. Native American tribes believed land held the spirits of their ancestors. Even the Bible describes land as divinely granted, a covenant between people and the divine. So why is land being ripped from your hands? Because the more disconnected you are from the land, the easier you are to control. A rootless society is a powerless society. If you don't own the land, you don't own your future. They've known this for centuries. That's why landowners hoard. That's why property prices never stop climbing. That's why you are expected to rent, lease, borrow, but never truly own. And if you think this is just a coincidence, wait until you see how deep the modern system goes. The game hasn't changed, only the rules. Today, they don't need swords or armies to take your land. They use contracts, policies, and economic sleight of hand. They've turned land into a scarcity machine, where prices always go up, never down. You may think it's just the economy, but in reality, it's a rigged system designed to keep land concentrated in the hands of the few. Let's break it down. You ever wonder how certain people always seem to get prime real estate before everyone else? Meet the land mafias, a mix of investors, speculators, and developers who snatch up cheap land before the average person even knows it's for sale. They hold onto it, sitting on empty lots waiting for prices to rise. This isn't a theory, it's happening everywhere. Entire neighborhoods are bought and left vacant just to drive up demand. They call it land banking. You call it, why the hell is a tiny apartment costing $500,000? When land is artificially kept scarce, prices shoot up. But it doesn't stop there. The moment you try to buy a home, you step into the next trap. 30-year mortgages. Think about it. Why does it take a lifetime to pay off one house? Because it's not just about buying land, it's about keeping you in debt. Banks and developers need you to borrow because debt is their real business. You don't buy land, you buy a contract to work for 30 years. And the kicker? By the time you pay off that house, property taxes, maintenance, and inflation have ensured you were just leasing it from the system all along. Land isn't just expensive, it's disappearing. Every year, farmland gets swallowed by luxury developments, parking lots, and corporate expansion. They take the land that once grew food and turn it into shopping malls and overpriced condos. This isn't just bad planning, it's by design. The less land available for essential needs, the more control they have over what you eat, where you live, and how much you have to pay just to exist. And here's the worst part. It's legal. Zoning laws, real estate loopholes, and government-backed development incentives make sure the system favors investors over individuals. Your dream of home ownership? Just another casualty in the grand economic chess game. But what if I told you there was another layer to this? What if I told you this isn't just about money, but power? The deeper you go, the clearer it becomes. Land ownership isn't just financial, it's psychological. And the people at the top know exactly what they're doing. It's never been just about land. It's about control. Throughout history, rulers have understood one thing. If people don't own land, they depend on those who do. Control the land, and you control the people. That's the real game being played. Even if you manage to buy property, do you truly own it? Try not paying your property taxes and see what happens. Try building something the city doesn't approve of. Try farming your land without following corporate-approved guidelines. Ownership today is an illusion. You don't own your land. You're renting it from the system. A system that can take it back anytime you step out of line. Governments have entire playbooks for land grabs. Ever heard of eminent domain? It's the legal power that allows the government to take your property if they claim it's for public use. But in reality, public use often means handing your land over to corporate developers. Think you're safe in a rural area? Think again. The rise of environmental regulations, zoning laws, and urban expansion has put rural landowners in a chokehold. You can own acres of land, but if the state decides you're mismanaging it, they can regulate you into submission or outright seize it. Why the rich buy land but don't live on it? You've probably noticed it. Skyscrapers full of empty apartments, entire neighborhoods with no one living in them. So why do the wealthy keep buying land they don't even use? Because for them, land isn't about living. It's about power storage. When a billionaire buys land, he's not thinking about building a home. He's securing an asset that never loses value. Unlike money, land can't be printed. Unlike stocks, it can't vanish in a crash. It's the ultimate form of wealth, one that guarantees leverage over generations. That's why the wealthiest families never sell their land. It stays in their hands for centuries, passed down like a royal inheritance, ensuring their dynasty never falls. Meanwhile, the average person is forced to sell their family home just to survive. Here's the part that should make you furious. Land scarcity is artificial. There's more than enough land for everyone to own a piece. But they don't want you to think that way. They want you desperate. They want you trapped in a cycle of renting, moving, and scraping by. Because when people have no roots, they have no power, no stability, no ability to challenge the system. A society where no one owns land is a society that can be completely controlled. Think about it. If you don't own, you have to obey. You can't grow your own food. You can't build a community. You can't create independence. That's why farmland is being bought up by billionaires while suburban neighborhoods are turned into rental empires. The end goal? A world where you own nothing and they own everything. And here's the worst part. Most people don't even realize it's happening. They accept skyrocketing property prices as just the way things are. They assume they'll rent forever. They believe the lie that only a lucky few can afford to own land. But that's not true. Land isn't scarce. Land isn't naturally expensive. It's been taken, hoarded, controlled, and unless people wake up, they'll find themselves in a world where land ownership is a privilege reserved for the ruling class. But here's the real question. Can you fight back? The answer isn't simple, but it exists. You see the game now. You see how land has been weaponized, how it's hoarded, manipulated, and used to control people. The question is, what can you do about it? Most people accept defeat. They shrug, rent forever, and believe land ownership is a dream only for the rich. But you're not most people. If you understand the system, you can start working around it. You may not be able to fight billionaires head-on, but you can reclaim control in ways they don't expect. Step 1. Escape the traditional home ownership trap. The system wants you to believe the only way to own land is to buy a house with a 30-year mortgage. That's a lie. Here's what they don't tell you. You don't need a huge home. Tiny homes, off-grid cabins, and mobile living are all ways to own land without drowning in debt. Buy land first, build later. Most people save for a house, not realizing they can buy a small plot of land much sooner, and slowly develop it over time. Look beyond the city. Everyone fights for the same overpriced urban homes, but rural and undeveloped land, that's where you'll find opportunities. Land ownership doesn't have to mean a suburban house with a white picket fence. It means owning a piece of earth that no one can take from you. Step 2. Form alliances. The power of community ownership. Here's a secret. The rich don't buy land alone. They use investment groups, trusts, and corporate structures. Why shouldn't you do the same? Land co-ops. Instead of going solo, gather a small group and buy land together. A few families pooling money can afford far more than an individual struggling alone. Community land trusts. This model allows groups to buy land collectively, ensuring it's used for the benefit of the members, not outside investors. Barter and private deals. Not all land transactions happen through banks. Private sales, owner financing, and barter agreements can bypass the traditional system. The key is this. Don't play by their rules. They win because they've trained people to fight alone. But when people work together, they can break the cycle. Step 3. Stop thinking like a renter. Start thinking like an owner. Ownership is a mindset shift. If you think like a renter, you'll stay one forever. Here's how to break free. Learn land laws. The less you know, the easier you are to manipulate. Understand zoning, property taxes, and loopholes that can work in your favor. Get self-sufficient. The more you can do with your land, grow food, build, generate power, the less dependent you are on the system. Don't wait for permission. If you keep waiting for the perfect time to buy, you'll be priced out forever. Start now, even if it's just a small step. Step 4. Recognize the bigger war at play. This isn't just about owning a house. It's about not being owned yourself. They want you renting, working, and struggling. They want you convinced that land ownership is impossible. That's the psychological trap. But once you see through it, you can start moving differently. Stop feeding the machine. Every time you accept absurd rent prices, buy into the mortgage trap, or believe that you'll never afford land, you play into their hands. Think long-term. The rich don't think in months or years. They think in generations. Start making moves now that your future self, or your kids, will thank you for. Create your own rules. The system isn't designed to help you. So why keep following their playbook? Rewrite it. The truth is harsh, but it's simple. You don't have to be a pawn in their game. If you take control of land, even a small piece, you take control of your future. Because the moment you own land, they no longer own you. Now you see it. The invisible chains, the silent war. Land isn't just about wealth. It's about control. Those who own the land own the rules. And for centuries, those rules have been written to keep you on the outside, looking in. But now you know the truth. They want you renting forever, moving from place to place, never planting roots. They want you chasing a paycheck, paying off endless debts, always believing that land ownership is out of reach. Because the moment you own land, you become uncontrollable. A piece of land means you're not at the mercy of a landlord. You're not tied to a system that wants you in debt. You have space to grow, build, and create. The elites understand this. That's why they hoard land while telling you it's too expensive for the average person. That's why they price you out while keeping entire buildings and plots empty. That's why they push the renter's mindset, convincing you that land ownership is for the lucky few. But the truth? They fear people who own land. Because a society of landowners is a society that doesn't need them. So here's the real question. Will you accept the lie or will you start thinking differently? You don't need to be a billionaire to own land. You just need to see through the illusion and start taking action. Start small, but start now. Find loopholes, alternatives, and ways to bypass the system. Work together because no one wins this fight alone. They want you believing you'll own nothing. Prove them wrong. Because at the end of the day, the most valuable thing you can ever own isn't just land. It's your freedom.